The stars burned cold and endless around the human vessel, Valiant Dawn, a ship of steel carrying 140 souls across the black sea of space. She moved steady through the void, her engines humming like a calm heartbeat, her crew unaware. That unseen eyes were already watching them. The silence of space held a strange weight tonight, heavier than usual. Like a predator waiting in the tall grass, the sensors on the bridge showed nothing. No movement, no trace, no danger. Yet the captain could not shake the unease that crawled beneath his skin. Captain Rael Varren stood at the command chair, his gaze locked on the main screen. The stars glimmered like diamonds, but something about the pattern felt wrong too. Empty, too quiet. He did not speak of it, not yet. His crew trusted him, and his words carried weight. He would not voice fear without reason. Still, his hand brushed the edge of the console, as if grounding himself against an invisible storm lieutenant. Marek, the young tactical officer, leaned over his station, tapping on his glowing display sensors. "Show nothing, sir, all clear ahead." His voice was calm, but his eyes flickered toward the captain, almost searching for reassurance. Rael gave a small nod, but he did not smile. Quiet sigh escaped from Ensign Lyra at communications. She brushed a strand of dark hair from her face. "Routine patrols, sir, same as before. No transmissions, no signals, no chatter, nothing but silence." Her voice carried unease, the kind of unease that spreads across a room like smoke, invisible but suffocating. In the engine room below, Chief Engineer Tamsin wiped grease from her hands as the thrumming core vibrated through the walls. She felt it too, though she did not say it aloud, a tension in the air like the moment before thunder breaks over a battlefield. Valiant Dawn pressed forward through the dark, unaware that hunters waited cloaked and patient in the shadows. The alien fleet hung like jagged teeth in the void, their ships massive and sharp-edged, silent predators hidden behind technology no human had ever faced. Before they waited with cold precision, their commander watching the lone human vessel with contempt to the alien mind. Humanity was fragile, a younger species reckless and untested. They would fall quickly, like prey cornered in a snare. Surrender would come, and the humans would kneel or burn. Either way, the ambush would show the galaxy that resistance to the Empire was hopeless on the bridge of Valiant Dawn. The uneasy silence grew heavier. Each crew member felt it in their own way. Lyra tapping her fingers nervously, Marek glancing at his instruments, too often helmsman Joran shifting in his seat as though expecting sudden turbulence. Even the hum of the life support system sounded louder, pressing against the silence. Captain Rael straightened at last, his voice steady. "Helm, reduce speed to half impulse. Hold course steady." "Aye, sir," replied Joran, though his tone betrayed his relief at hearing an order. The ship slowed the stars, drifting slower across the screen. The captain studied the void, his instincts gnawing at him in the observation deck. Midshipman Ellen stood alone, gazing through the wide, transparent dome. Stars glittered across her eyes, but she felt her chest tighten. She whispered softly into the silence, "It feels like something is out there watching us." The words drifted unheard by anyone but herself. The first flicker came a brief pulse on the sensor grid. Marek frowned, staring. At the screen he tapped twice, ran a quick scan. "Nothing appeared anomaly, sir," he reported. "Could be debris or sensor ghost." But the captain's eyes narrowed. "Show me the anomaly." The screen displayed a faint ripple, a distortion so brief it vanished, almost instantly. But Rael knew he had seen something real. "Prepare long-range scans," the captain ordered, voice low but firm. "Aye, sir," said Marek, fingers flying across the console deep. In the shadows, the alien commander observed the humans with a cruel smile. Their prey had noticed the faintest tremor, but it would not matter soon. The trap would close, the prey would thrash, but in vain. On the bridge of Valiant Dawn, alarms whispered softly. The scan revealed empty space, yet the distortion remained. Irregular, faint, but persistent. The captain felt the tension coil tighter. He spoke quietly. Red alert, lock down all decks. Now the siren lights flared crimson, bathing the corridors in bloodlight. Boots thundered as crew scrambled to stations weapons. Armed shields raised. The ship transformed from calm vessel to war stance. Confusion spread through the younger crew. Why red alert sensors show nothing, yet they obeyed the captain's command. His voice held the weight of experience. Rail Varin had seen battle before. He knew the smell of danger, and this silence carried it thick and heavy. The alien fleet shifted in silence. Their commander gave the order, hold steady, wait, let them sweat. The humans were blind against their cloaking fields, arrogant. Confidence pulsed through the alien ships. The humans waited in tense silence. Minutes stretched thin, every console glowed, every hand clenched around controls, every breath sounded too loud in the pressurized air. Captain Rail stood at the center, calm as stone, though his pulse hammered in his chest. He spoke quietly to his officers, steady your hearts, remember your training. The distortion came again, stronger this time. Marek shouted contact, multiple readings bearing 327 Mark 6. But before he could finish, the void exploded with light. The alien ships erupted into view, black and jagged like blades, cutting through the stars surrounding Valiant Dawn in a perfect ring, weapons charged, humming, with deadly power gasps filled the bridge. But the captain did not flinch. The alien voice burst across the comms, translated into harsh tones. Humans, surrender. Your vessel lay down arms or be destroyed. There was no negotiation, no mercy, only the cold certainty of a predator demanding obedience. On the bridge, silence fell. The crew looked to their captain. His jaw tightened, his eyes sharp as steel. He leaned forward, pressing the comm control. His voice, slow, measured, dangerous. This is Captain Rail Varin of the human vessel, Valiant. Dawn, your demand is heard. His crew held their breath, waiting for his next words, but he let the silence stretch his eyes, never leaving the enemy fleet. The aliens expected fear, surrender, begging. Instead, they saw calm defiance they mistook it for. Foolish pride, unaware of the storm they had stirred within these fragile-seeming humans. The captain's voice carried across the comm again, smooth like ice. You want surrender, you will not find it here, the alien commander sneered. Prepare to fire aboard. Valiant Dawn hearts pounded. The trap had been sprung, the jaws had closed, but in the silence before the first shot rang out, humanity's spirit burned fierce and unbroken. The ambush had begun, yet none could predict whose doom it would truly be. The alien ships closed in black shapes, bristling with weapons, their jagged hulls catching the faint glow of nearby stars. They circled the Valiant Dawn like wolves around a cornered stag. Their engines rumbled through the void, and their weapons shone, with power waiting for the order to unleash destruction. The humans sat inside their lone ship, hearts pounding. The crew tense, every eye fixed on the main screen where the enemy surrounded them from every direction. Captain Rail Varin stood tall, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. Though his voice was calm inside his chest, his heart hammered. The alien commander's words echoed through the comm: surrender or be destroyed. The demand still hung in the air, but the captain let silence answer for a moment. He wanted his crew to feel the strength in waiting, wanted the enemy to think humans were still deciding. Lieutenant Marek whispered under his breath. Weapons primed, so shields at full strength. Orders. The captain did not reply. At once, instead, he looked around the bridge at each face, the young officers, the veterans, the frightened ensigns, all staring back, waiting for the choice that would decide if they lived or died. On the alien flagship, Commander Korath sneered, his long claws tapping against the armrest of his throne. Humans weak, predictable, they will surrender. They always surrender before the strong. The other officers nodded, their weapons charged, ready to fire on the smallest sign of resistance. Aboard Valiant Dawn, The crew waited, the silence thick like the air before a storm. Then Captain Rail finally spoke, his words low but sharp as a blade. "Tell them this is humanity's answer. Lyra, open comm channel." Now his comms officer swallowed hard but obeyed. Her fingers moved across the console channel open. "Sir," the alien commander appeared on the main screen, his scaled face twisted in smug certainty. Captain Rail met his gaze steady as stone. "We do not surrender. We never have. We never will." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. His sneer faded into a cold grin. "So be it, fire in an instant." The void lit up with streams of energy, alien cannons blazing. The first volley slammed into the valiant Dawn. Her shields flared brilliant blue against the assault. The ship shook violently, consoles sparked, lights flickered, alarms screamed through the bridge. "Damage control team's report," shouted the captain. Voices answered over comms, minor hull strain shields holding. More fire rained down from all sides. The aliens, confident their prey would break. Soon, the crew clung to their stations, bracing against the shaking walls. Yet still, the captain's voice remained calm, steady. As a mountain returned fire, he commanded. Marek's fingers flew across his console, torpedoes away, energy beams launched. The valiant Dawn struck back. Two alien ships shuddered under the counterattack. One spiraled off course, smoking fire spilling into the dark. Another lost its shield for a moment, sparks bursting across its hull. The humans cheered, but only briefly, for dozens more enemy ships still surrounded them, their weapons burning hot. In the medical bay, Dr. Valen steadied his team as crews staggered in with burns and bruises. The ground quaked under each strike, yet she ordered with calm precision, "Keep them breathing, keep them fighting." She knew this was only the beginning. Deep in engineering, Chief Tamsin barked commands over the roar of engines. "Stabilize the power grid reroute. Auxiliary to forward shields if they fall. We are done." Sweat poured down her face, but her eyes burned fierce on the bridge. Captain Rail watched the battle unfold. Each hit, each strike, each desperate counterattack. His mind raced through possibilities. They were outnumbered, outgunned, surrounded, but not defeated. Not yet. He leaned closer to Marek. "Target their formation. Break their circle. If they box us in, we are finished." "Yes, sir," Marek replied. Torpedoes locked on center formation. The next barrage from Valiant Dawn ripped into 3 ships at once. Their circle faltered momentarily, breaking the perfect ring around the human vessel. "Seize it," Rail shouted. "Helm." Full thrust through the gap, engines roared. The ship lurched forward, hurtling through the hole in the enemy line. Alien ships scrambled to close the breach, but too slow. Valiant Dawn pushed through streaks of fire. Chasing her tail, cheers erupted across the bridge, but Rail raised his hand. "Silence. It is not over. Not by far. The aliens will not let us go that easy." He was right behind them. The fleet shifted, turning like a school of predators, giving chase there. Numbers endless compared to the single human vessel. The alien commander's snarl filled the comm. "Insolent creatures. You dare resist us. Crush them. Tear them apart." His officers obeyed their weapons, spitting fire across the void. The chase thundered. On beams of energy, chasing the fleeing human ship, explosions, flashing around them like storms of light in the mess hall. Crew not on duty clutched tables as the ship rattled, prayers whispered between clenched teeth. Others sang softly old songs, of earth songs of courage and home, their voices trembling but strong on the observation deck. Midshipman Ellen pressed her hand against the glass, staring at the burning trails of battle outside. Her voice quivered but carried determination. "They think we are prey, but we are not. We never were." The battle raged, minute after minute, shields draining with every hit. The ship groaned under the strain. Consoles flickered, flames sparked damage. Teams rushed through smoke-filled corridors. Still, the humans fought back every shot. Precise, every strike fierce. The aliens expected fear, but instead they saw fury. Commander Korath's anger grew with every human attack. These fragile creatures should have broken by now, but instead they defied him. At every turn, his claws clenched, his fangs. Bared, "Destroy them all. No survivors, no prisoners aboard Valiant Dawn." Captain Rail heard the alien's threats echo through the comm. His lips curled into a hard, grim smile. His voice low enough, only his. Bridge crew could hear, "Let them come, we will show them what it means to face humanity." His crew nodded, eyes blazing with the same fire. Then came the heaviest strike, yet a barrage that tore across the shields. Sparks showered the bridge. One console exploded, sending an ensign sprawling unconscious. Smoke filled the air, alarms, shrieked shields, failing down to 30%. Reported Marek, his voice strained. Hull breaches on decks. 3 and 5 shouted another crewman, the captain's eyes flicked across the chaos, calm but burning with resolve. "Hold steady, Patch, the breaches, keep firing, keep moving, do not let them cage us again." And still the crew obeyed, clinging to duty even as the ship shook and groaned around them. They fought, because their captain believed, because humanity had never bowed to conquerors, because surrender was never in their blood. The alien fleet pressed closer, their weapons like endless thunder. The humans battered, bleeding but unbroken, every second. They survived was a defiance, every shot they returned. A promise of vengeance. The trap had been sprung, the jaws had closed, but the prey still had teeth sharp enough to tear the hunter's throat in that moment, as fire filled the void and death. Pressed close around them, the crew of the valiant Dawn understood they were more than a ship, more than a mission. They were the line between survival and extinction, and no ambush. No empire, no alien fleet would break them so long as breath remained. In their lungs, the captain's voice cut through the chaos, strong, unyielding, steady as the beating heart of humanity itself. "This is our stand. This is where we fight. This is where we show them who we are." The crew roared back, voices fierce through smoke and fear, for they knew the battle had only just begun. The void burned with fire, the black canvas of space alive with explosions. Bright streaks of energy cut across the darkness as the alien fleet pressed their advantage, jagged ships swarming. Around the valiant Dawn, like a pack of predators hungry for the kill, the human vessel shook with each impact, her hull groaning under the weight of the assault. Yet still she endured, her shields thin but unbroken, her crew bloodied, but still at their posts. Captain Rael Varin stood at the center of the storm, his face calm, his eyes sharp, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair with steady control. Every instinct screamed at him to survive, but not merely survive. He wanted victory even. Against impossible odds, the aliens had expected fear. Instead, they found defiance, and now they would find something worse. Human cunning. Lieutenant Marek called out over the roar of alarms, shields at 22%. So structural strain increasing. Weapons still online, but overheating. Rail's jaw tightened. He leaned forward, his voice low but clear. "Weapons will hold long enough. They always do. We just have to be smarter than them." The alien commander Korath hissed on his flagship, watching. The human vessel danced through the storm of fire. "Impossible," he muttered, claws scraping the metal armrest. "How do they still resist? They are cornered, yet they strike like vipers." His officers bowed low, awaiting his command. Crush, their engines finish. This aboard the valiant Dawn. Another volley of fire slammed into the rear quarter. Sparks rained down. Smoke filled the air helm. Reported engines at 60% maneuvering, limited but still functional. Tamsin's voice cut through the comm from engineering, patching the grid, captain holding it together with spit and rage. But she forced a laugh even as flames licked around her. Captain Rail's mind raced through strategies they could not win by brute strength. Numbers were against them. But humans had always thrived, not by power but by wit. He studied the enemy formation, the way they moved, the way they attacked in unison, like a machine, precise but predictable. Predictable was exploitable. He turned to Marek. "Prepare feint pattern. Delta 6, confuse their targeting. Make them believe our port side is weaker than it is." Marek's eyes widened. "Risky. So shields are thin enough already." Rail's voice was steel. "Let them see weakness, then strike where they least expect the order." flew across the ship. The crew obeyed, though their bodies trembled from fatigue. Energy-shifted shields fluctuated the left side of the ship, dimmed weaker than before on the alien sensors. It glowed like a wound. Commander Korath's grin returned. There they are! Focus fire on the port side, tear it open. His fleet obeyed. Dozens of ships turned, unleashing a storm of fire toward the false weakness. But the valiant Dawn twisted through space, her starboard batteries blazing, her torpedoes cutting. Across the void, 3 alien ships caught off guard erupted in fire. Another spun out, crippled by the sudden counterattack. The feint had worked perfectly. The crew cheered, voices rising above the chaos. Humanity had bitten back. The alien commander roared in rage, his claws slashing across the control panel. Fools, do not underestimate them. Adjust formation, tighten the net. They cannot escape. Yet even as he raged, Captain Rail pressed the advantage helm. Roll us under their formation. Keep pressure. On their center, Marek fire at will. The human vessel dived engines, straining metal, screaming but holding torpedoes, streaked like burning arrows, tearing holes in the alien circle. Beams sliced through the dark alien ships, exploded one after another. Each destruction a shockwave that rocked the void in Medical Bay. Dr. Wei Lin braced against the shaking walls, her team rushing from patient to patient, screams filling the air. The wounded poured in. But even as she worked, she felt the ship move. She felt the defiance in every turn, every strike. She whispered under her breath, "Hold them, Rail! Hold them!" The crew pushed harder. Sweat and blood smeared across consoles, lungs burning from smoke. Yet their eyes shone fierce. They were fighting, not just for survival, but to prove a truth. Humans were not prey. The aliens realized too late the trap was turning against them. What was meant to be a slaughter had become a storm, tearing through their ranks. Their arrogance had blinded them to human. Resolved now that arrogance cost them ship after ship, Commander Korath slammed his fist against his chair, voice booming across the bridge. All ships converge, crush them now. But doubt had spread through his crew. Whispers of human resilience. Whispers of fear. The humans were not breaking. They were cutting through. Aboard Valiant Dawn, Rail felt it too, the tide shifting. But he knew the danger remained, numbers still against them. Weapons overheating shields, one strike from collapse. They were not out of danger, but they had shown their teeth, and that meant the aliens would strike harder. Desperate and furious, Marek shouted, "Incoming volley full spread. They are trying to overwhelm us." Rael's eyes narrowed, brace for impact. The storm hit a wall of energy, slamming into the ship. Shields shattered the hull. Screamed alarms blared across every deck. Bodies thrown against bulkheads. Smoke filled the bridge. A console exploded. Flames roaring. Marek slammed into the deck, blood on his forehead. Lyra screamed, pulling him back to his chair. Her hands shaking. Damage reports poured in. Hull breaches on decks. 7, 9, and 11 atmosphere venting damage control teams dispatched. Shouted a voice over comm. Rael gritted his teeth, his voice steady through the chaos patch. The breaches seal, the decks hold the line. His voice steadied his crew, even as the ship burned deep in engineering. Tamsin's team fought flames, sparks showering from ruptured conduits. "We are losing. A pressure core destabilizing." She yelled, her voice hoarse, but her hands never stopped moving, rerouting power, pulling cables, slamming switches, sweat pouring down her face. She knew if the core failed, it would mean the end. But still, she worked still. She fought the alien fleet closed in, pressing their momentary advantage beams, lighting the void. Their commander convinced the humans would finally break. But once again, Rael whispered low, almost to himself, "Not yet. Humanity does not fall so easy." "Helm, prepare emergency maneuver Alpha 3. Helm's voice cracked, "Sir," that could tear the hull. Rael's eyes burned with fire, then let it tear. "If it saves us, execute." The ship lurched, engines roaring. The Valiant Dawn spun through space, twisting, rolling, plunging straight through the heart of the enemy formation. The aliens never expected such recklessness. Their weapons faltered, unable to track the sudden surge. The human ship became a storm itself, weaving through fire trails, slipping between jaws snapping shut. Alien ships collided, trying to adjust too, slammed into each other, erupting into flames. Another veered off course, crippled by crossfire chaos spread through their ranks. Rail had turned their precision into confusion. Every weakness exposed. The crew held on for dear life as the ship twisted, but they saw it too. The brilliance of the move, the courage of their captain. They clung tighter, not to consoles, but to hope. When the ship leveled out, 3 more alien ships drifted dead. In space, smoking wreckage scattered across the void. The crew erupted in cheers, voices hoarse but fierce. Marek, battered and bloodied, raised his head through smoke, his voice cracked, but strong, Captain. They are bleeding. They are actually bleeding. Rail gave the smallest nod, his eyes still burning. Keep pressure, do not let them breathe. Commander Korath stared in disbelief, his perfect ambush, crumbling ship after ship, falling. His jaw tightened, his rage, trembling into something else. Fear. This was not possible, yet it was happening before his eyes. Humans tearing through an Empire fleet with nothing but one vessel and relentless will aboard. Valiant Dawn alarms still blared. Smoke still filled the air, wounded still cried out, but the spirit on the bridge was unbroken. They had turned the trap back against the hunters. Rael looked out into the burning void and whispered for all to hear. They wanted surrender. Instead, they found our fury. The crew answered with roars, voices echoing through. The battered hulls of their ship humanity had answered the ambush, not with weakness, not with surrender, but with fire and blood and cunning. The battle was far from over. The enemy, still countless, the danger still near, but for the first time since the ambush began. The humans knew they could fight back, they could survive, and more than survive, they could win. The alien fleet regrouped. Their commander, snarling his voice, trembling with fury and dread, crush them before the galaxy learns what they have done. His words were desperate. Not confident anymore, the trap had failed, and doom was shifting its gaze away from humans and toward the ones who thought themselves predators, but had awakened prey with sharper teeth than any hunter could. Imagine fire burned across the dark sky of space. Wreckage floated everywhere, twisted metal spinning slowly, glowing embers drifting like sparks from a dying fire. The human ship, Valiant Dawn, pushed forward through the chaos, her hull blackened, scorched. Her shields gone, her crew battered but alive. The alien fleet still surrounded them, though fewer now. Many had been destroyed in the last desperate counterattack. Yet more remained, their weapons charged, their hatred growing with every breath. Captain Raelvarin stood tall in the center of the bridge, smoke curling in the air around him, his uniform torn, his face smeared with ash and blood. Yet his eyes glowed fierce, his voice calm like a blade, cutting through storm status reports. He demanded. Quickly, Marek's voice cracked, weapons still online, but overheating shields completely gone. Hull integrity at 60%, structural failure. Likely if we take another full barrage. Engineering reports. Core unstable, damage teams spread thin. Rael nodded, absorbing every word. No fear, no hesitation, only calculation. The crew stared at him, waiting for hope. Even in silence, they sought it in his eyes. He gave it with a small nod and a voice steady as stone. We are still alive, and as long as we breathe, we fight. His words sank into them like fire into dry wood. Their hearts caught flame again. They straightened, bruised, bleeding, yet ready to continue. The alien commander Korath watched from his flagship, rage boiling in his chest. So many of his ships lay burning in space, yet the human vessel still lived. This was no longer an ambush. This was humiliation. His claws dug into his chair. His voice thundered across his bridge. Finish them now. No more games. No more delays. Crush them into dust. The alien fleet moved as one, weapons glowing brighter than before, forming a wall of death that closed in around the human vessel. Every ship aligned, every cannon aimed. This was the storm meant to end humanity in one strike aboard Valiant Dawn. Alarms screamed, damage warnings blared across every console. The crew gritted their teeth, bracing for the fire that would surely kill them. The first wave hit beams, tearing across the hull. Metal groaned like a wounded beast, sparks exploded, flames burst through corridors. Crew screamed as bulkheads collapsed. Atmosphere vented into the void. Alarms shrieked. Damage reports flooded in. Hull breach on deck. 9 breach on deck. 12 engineering hit. Medbay hit. Smoke and fire spread through the ship, chaos consuming every hallway. In medical bay, Dr. Valen worked with blood on her hands, bodies around her, the screams of the dying, mixing with the roar of collapsing walls. She shouted orders louder than the alarms. Keep pressure here, SEAL. That wound, move him now, we cannot stop. She wiped sweat from her brow, her heart heavy, but her hands never stopped each second. Another life slipping through her fingers. She fought to hold them all deep in engineering. Chief Tamsin coughed through, smoke flames licking around her consoles. The reactor throbbed, dangerously unstable. Her team scrambled to hold it steady, her voice hoarse over comms. Captain, we are losing her. I can't promise much longer. Rail's voice came back steady. Do what? You can, Tamsin, hold us together a little longer. Her reply cracked with pain. I'll hold until I burn on the bridge. Marek staggered to his feet, blood dripping down his temple, his console sparking. He looked to the captain. Sir, our weapons are burning. Out if we keep firing, they will fail. Rail's voice cut through sharp. Then let them fail after we use them. The ship shook again. Another volley tearing into her hull. A scream came from the far side of the bridge. An explosion throwing an ensign into the wall. Her body fell limp, silent for a moment. Every crew member froze, staring at the lifeless form. Shock breaking their focus. Rail's voice shattered the silence. Eyes on your stations. Grieve later, fight now. His tone held no softness, only steel, but it pulled them back from despair. More crew fell across the ship hallways, filled with smoke bodies, dragged by medics through fire and rubble. Every death weighed heavy, yet none abandoned their posts. The spirit of humanity burned brighter than the fire consuming their ship. The alien commander sneered, watching the destruction. At last the humans crumble, their ship breaking, their people dying. He leaned forward, ready to deliver the final blow, but then his sensors blinked. Warning flashes filled his screen. Several of his ships had gone dark, disabled not from human weapons, but from crossfire, their own overzealous attacks colliding in the chaos. His fleet's perfect precision crumbling under the humans, desperate resistance aboard. Valiant Dawn Captain Rail saw it too. Weakness in the enemy formation gaps forming among their ships, desperation cracking their unity. He leaned forward, his voice soft but deadly helm. Prepare to dive into their center. Marek, ready torpedoes 4. Concentrated fire, Lyra, open comms to all decks. Tell them this is it. This is where we show them who we are. The crew obeyed, even through tears, even through blood. Their hands steady, their eyes fierce. The ship lurched, engines roaring, metal screaming, as she surged forward through the fire, straight into the heart of the alien fleet. Torpedoes launched beams, slicing through enemy hulls. Explosions flared. 1, 2, 3 alien ships shattered. The humans roared, voices fierce through the chaos. The aliens expected surrender. Instead, they found slaughter. But victory came at a price. Another strike hit Valiant Dawn hard. The hull cracked. Alarms screamed. Engineering reported core breach imminent. Tamsin's voice hoarse. We can't hold much longer. Captain, the reactor is tearing apart. Rail closed his eyes for a breath, then opened them sharp. His voice steady. Prepare to vent auxiliary sections. Seal them off. Sacrifice what we must to keep us alive. Tamsin's voice broke. Aye, sir. Her team obeyed, even as flames consumed them. Dr. Valen in medbay felt the ground shake again. Walls crumbling, her patients crying out. She looked around at the wounded, at the broken faces. She could not save them all, but she would not stop. She tied another bandage, pressed another wound. Her heart breaking, but her voice firm. Stay awake, stay alive. On the bridge. Marek coughed through smoke, his hands trembling. Sir, weapons offline, shields gone, hull collapsing. What are your orders? Rael looked around at his crew, at their faces, soot, streaked, blooded, exhausted, yet still waiting, still hoping. He rose from his chair, standing tall, even as his ship died. His voice cut through the chaos, strong as thunder. We fight to the last breath, we fight so that even if we fall, they will never forget us. Fire everything we have left. The ship roared with final fury, every remaining torpedo launched, every cannon blazing. The void filled with fire, alien ships tore apart under the last defiant strike explosions, ripping across the battlefield. The aliens reeled, stunned by the sheer ferocity of a dying vessel. Their commander's roar filled his bridge. Impossible, impossible. But aboard Valiant Dawn, silence followed the final strike. Consoles darkened, power fading. The ship drifted wounded. Beyond saving, crew collapsed, where they stood, some weeping, some silent, their strength gone, yet their spirits unbroken. Rael stood at the center, his body swaying, his voice soft, yet fierce. They thought we would kneel. Instead, we showed them what it means to be human. The crew answered with whispers, with cries, with broken laughter. Even in defeat, their fire still burned. They had paid a heavy cost, 2 heavy lives, lost hull, shattered hope, bleeding into the void. Yet their defiance had carved scars into the enemy. The ambush meant to break. Humanity had instead shown the galaxy that humans were not prey. Humans were fire, and fire could never be caged. And as the wreckage of the battlefield drifted across the endless dark, the surviving aliens looked at the lone, broken human ship with something their kind had never felt before. Not contempt, not arrogance, but fear. The battlefield hung silent, wreckage floated in every direction, twisted alien ships drifted dark and broken, glowing. Fires still burned where hulls had been torn apart. The human vessel Valiant Dawn remained in the center, her engines dim, her shields gone. Her frame cracked and bleeding sparks flickered from her sides like dying embers, yet inside the battered ship hearts still beat. The crew still breathed, smoke filled the corridors. Flames licked along the walls, but the humans were not gone. Not yet. In the alien flagship, Commander Korath leaned forward, his scaled hands gripping the arms of his chair, his eyes wide with rage. But beneath the rage, a new feeling stirred, one he had not known before. Fear. The humans should have been destroyed, their ship should have been reduced to ashes, yet they still floated there, defiant in the dark they had shattered. More than a dozen ships resisted every strike and turned his perfect trap into chaos. His officers stood silent around him. No one dared speak, their eyes flicking to their commander, waiting, but also afraid. Korath's mind twisted with disbelief. How could this weak species hold such fire? How could they refuse surrender, even with death? Certain his people had crushed countless foes across the stars, but never had prey bitten back like this. His chest burned with humiliation, his voice a growl. Seal the formation, hold them there, do not let them escape. He wanted to finish the humans, but hesitation tugged at him deep down. A thought whispered, if one human ship could do this, what would happen if more arrived aboard Valiant Dawn? The bridge lay in ruin, consoles, shattered, smoke pouring from vents, crew bleeding, slumped at their stations, yet still alive. Captain Rael Varans stood tall, though his legs trembled from exhaustion. His uniform torn, his face cut by shrapnel, his voice low but strong. Report, he demanded. Marek coughed blood from his mouth. Weapons offline, shields gone, hull integrity 20%. We cannot take another hit. Lyra's voice cracked, comms fading. Captain. But still functional. Rael's eyes narrowed, staring out at the alien fleet still circling like vultures, but he saw it. He saw their hesitation, their movements slower, less precise. He spoke softly, but every ear on the bridge heard them. They are afraid, they will not admit it, but they fear us, the crew. Looked up surprised, Lyra's voice quivered. How can they fear us, sir? They still outnumber us 100 to 1. Rael's gaze burned because they thought we would kneel, and instead we showed them humanity does not kneel. The words spread through the crew like fire through dry grass. Their spines straightened, their eyes hardened even as their ship failed around them. They were not beaten. Not yet. On the alien bridge, one officer dared speak, his voice low. "Commander, perhaps we should regroup. Reinforcements can finish them." Korath snapped his head toward him, his eyes blazing silence. "We will not flee from humans." But the doubt was there. It whispered in every corner of his ship. His soldiers looked at the burning human vessel, and for the first time they saw not prey but predators. Back on Valiant Dawn, Dr. Valen pressed bandages against another wound. Her hand-stained red medbay overflowed with the injured. Every cot filled bodies on the floor, groaning the air thick with smoke. And blood, her heart broke with every cry, yet her voice never wavered. "Breathe, hold on, stay with me," she told them again and again, even as her own legs threatened to buckle. She knew if she faltered, they all would in engineering. Tamsin clung to her, console sparks raining down her team, broken and scattered. Yet she still worked, her voice raw over comms. "Captain, we can push a burst to the engines. Maybe one more maneuver, but it will burn us out." Rail's reply came steady. "Then we make it count." The alien commander gave the order, "Fire again. Finish them beams," lit the void, slamming into Valiant Dawn metal. Screamed bulkheads, split atmosphere, vented crew thrown across corridors. Yet still the ship lived still. The humans clung to their vessel. Smoke poured from her wounds. Fire traced along her skin like veins of molten fury. Korath's claws trembled. This should not be possible. Why do they still resist inside the ship? Marek dragged himself back to his console, his body broken, but his eyes fierce. "Sir, I have one last torpedo-armed manual launch only." Rail turned to him, his expression unreadable. "Save it for when it matters most." Marek nodded, blood dripping onto the panel, his hands trembling but steady. Another alien officer whispered. To Korath, his voice cautious, "Commander, if this is what one human ship can do, imagine what their fleets could bring. Perhaps we should not waste more lives." Korath's eyes blazed silence. He roared, but inside his chest the whisper grew louder. On the bridge of Valiant Dawn, silence fell as the alien fleet slowed their barrage, hesitating, pulling back slightly. Rail saw it. He knew the truth. They were losing heart. He stood tall, his voice rising across his battered bridge. "Listen to me, all of you. They thought us broken. They thought us weak. But look at them now. They falter because they see what we are. They see the fire inside us. They see the cost of trying to break humanity, and that cost is their doom." The crew roared, their voices shaking. The broken walls, their hearts swelling even as blood dripped from their wounds. They were alive, they were human, and they would not fall. Korath slammed his claws against the console, his chest heaving, yet his mind would not quiet. He remembered every blast, every defiance, every scream of his men as their ships burned. He saw the human captain standing tall in the flames, refusing to bow, and for the first time in his long life, Commander Korath of the Empire felt doubt true and sharp aboard Valiant. Don Marek lifted his head. Eyes, bloodshot voice. "Weak, sir. They fear us." Rail looked at him and nodded, his voice soft but unbreakable. "Good they should." The alien fleet hovered in silence, weapons ready, but their courage fractured. The humans had shown them something they had never seen before, prey that refused to die. Prey that drew blood again and again. Prey that fought like predators from the deepest dark. Now fear spread through the alien ranks, like a disease whispers moving faster than orders. Their claws trembled, their voices hushed, and in their silence humanity had already won something greater than the battle they had won. Terror Captain Rail stood in the wreckage of his bridge, his crew around him broken but alive. He looked out at the enemy through the smoke and the dark, his voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying to every soul aboard the enemy. Thought we would surrender. Instead, they met the truth of humanity. We may fall, but if we fall, we take them with us. And the galaxy will know our name. His crew answered with what voices they had left. Whispers, cries, laughter, defiance, each sound a hammer striking fear deeper into the enemy hearts. The valiant dawn drifted broken but not beaten fire, still glowing within her, and the alien fleet circled powerless to finish a prey that would not die powerless to face a truth they had never known before. Humans were not prey, humans were the storm. The wreckage of the battle still drifted in silence, the stars cold and distant. The human ship, Valiant Dawn, floated wounded. Her metal skin cracked her engines, gasping her lights, flickering like dying candles, yet inside her corridors voices still moved, footsteps still echoed, hearts still beat. The crew clung to life, their ship bleeding but unbroken. In the alien flagship, Commander Korath paced his claws, scraping against the deck, each step sharp, filled with fury and fear. His officers stood silent, afraid to meet his eyes. Their fleet still outnumbered the human ship, 100-1. Yet hesitation bound their claws, whispers spread through their ranks. They had seen what one human vessel could do. They had seen the prey strike like hunters. Korath's mind burned with shame. His perfect trap broken, his ships scattered across the void. He had promised victory quick and easy, but the humans had twisted his promise into humiliation. He turned his eyes to the screen, the human vessel drifting. Smoke rising from its wounds, but still alive, still defiant. He snarled, "Destroy them now, finish it." But even as he spoke, doubt hung heavy in his chest aboard Valiant Dawn. Captain Rael Varin stood on his broken bridge, the smoke choking the air panels. Sparking fires burning low, but his eyes clear, steady. His crew battered and bleeding, yet they looked to him, waiting for his voice. Rael spoke quiet but strong. "They circle because they fear us. They wait because they do not know what we will do, and that is our strength." Marek slumped against his console, his hands bloody, his voice raw. "So weapons are gone, except the last torpedo manual launch. Only Rael's gaze held his steady. Then that torpedo is the blade they fear, more than anything Lyra's." Trembling voice added, "Comms are fading, but still open. We can still be heard." Rael's eyes sharpened. "Then let them hear us. Let every word pierce them like fire." The captain opened comms, his voice echoing across the void. "Alien Commander, you think us broken, you think us beaten, yet look to your ships, see the flames, see the wreckage. You thought humanity weak. But weakness does not carve fear into the hearts of hunters. We are still here. We are still standing. If you come for us, we will show you again what it means to challenge humanity." His words carried across the alien channels, filling their bridges, their halls. Their soldiers froze, their claws trembling, his voice steady even as his ship burned. Rael knew the truth. Words were weapons, and fear was sharper than steel in the alien flagship. Silence followed his speech, eyes wide, whispers soft. An officer dared to speak. "Commander," his voice uncertain, "if one ship can do this, what of their fleets? What if more come?" Korath's chest burned. His rage fought his fear, but the doubt had spread too far. He could not stop it. His officers shifted uneasily, their courage breaking. Aboard Valiant Dawn, the crew drew strength from their captain's defiance, their wounds deep, their ship failing, but their hearts rising. They knew they stood on the edge of death, but in that place they found power, not despair. Lyra whispered, "They hear us, sir. I can feel it." Rael's answer was a low growl. "Good. Let them never forget it." Dr. Valen staggered. Through medbay, her hands stained red, bodies lying in every cot, voices, weak cries echoing. But still, she moved still. She fought. "Hold on. Breathe. Stay with me," she said again and again, her voice calm, her heart breaking. But she never stopped. She knew. If she gave up, the ship would break with her in engineering. Tamsin's hands shook as she worked, wires sparking metal, groaning. Her team shattered around her. But her eyes locked on the systems, her voice cracked, but firm. "Captain, I can give us one. Final burst enough for one last strike or escape, but it will burn the core." Rael's reply came without hesitation. Then we choose carefully. Korath stood in his command deck, claws tight, his pride screaming his fear, whispering the humans had struck. His fleet, his soldiers doubted his every order. He had to decide, destroy them and risk more humiliation, or retreat and face shame. Greater than death, his chest heaved, his decision torn on valiant dawn. Marek coughed blood, his fingers trembling over. The torpedo controls his eyes, locked on Rael. Say the word captain. Rael's gaze hardened. Not yet, they must come closer. Let their fear drive them into reach. The alien fleet shifted slowly, circling uneasily. Their formation broken their movements. Uncertain, Korath barked at them, tighten ranks. Advance, finish them, but his voice lacked its old power. His officers obeyed, but their eyes carried doubt. The void filled with silence. Heavy, crushing, waiting each side, staring across the gulf, smoke drifting. Bodies floating, stars watching, cold and indifferent. Then the alien ships edged closer, beams charging weapons, humming their claws, reaching for the kill. Rael's voice rose across his broken bridge, steady, unyielding crew of the valiant Dawn stand. Ready for the storm. The torpedo armed its systems, humming like a heartbeat, Marek's hands steady, though his body broke. Lyra's fingers danced across the fading comms, her lips whispering words of strength. Tamsin's team held the engines waiting. The final push, Dr. Valen pressed her hands harder on a wound, whispering, breathe, 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 and across the bridge, across the medbay, across every shattered hall. The crew whispered back, we are still here. Korath roared, fire weapons lit the void beams striking valiant Dawn. The ship shuddered, walls split, screams filled the air, but still she lived still. She stood, her frame cracking but not breaking. Rael's voice cut through the chaos. Now Marek slammed the control, the torpedo shot. Into the void, blazing like a star slicing through the dark. The alien fleet scattered, but too late. The warhead struck one of their cruisers. The explosion, a sun blooming in silence. Fire consuming metal bodies, flung into the black. The shockwave, ripping through formation. The alien soldiers froze, their eyes wide, fear bursting full. Now the prey had teeth, the prey had fire. Korath's heart stopped, his breath shallow. This was impossible. This was ruin. His officers whispered, retreat, retreat. And though his pride screamed, his soul knew the truth. Aboard valiant Dawn, the bridge shook, the lights dimmed, the ship bleeding but alive. The crew gasped, their eyes wide, hope flickering. Rael's chest heaved, but his voice calm. This is humanity. We do not bow. We do not break. The alien fleet wavered, formations, faltering whispers growing into shouts, fear spreading like wildfire through their ranks. Korath's claws trembled, his pride cracked, his voice broke retreat. He spat the word, and in that moment the fate of the battle was sealed. The aliens turned their ships away, their engines blazing, fleeing the battlefield, leaving wreckage behind. On valiant Dawn, silence filled the bridge. The crew stared at the screens, disbelief in their eyes. The enemy was running, the predators were fleeing from the prey. Tears filled Lyra's eyes. Sir, they are leaving. Rael lowered his head, his voice a whisper but strong. Then we have shown them the truth. The ship groaned, her frame failing, her systems broken. But in that silence, in that victory, the crew of valiant Dawn found something greater than survival. They found proof. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the storm, and the galaxy would never forget it. The fires burned. The wounds deep, the ship on the edge of ruin, yet still alive, still defiant, still human. And as the stars stretched endless before them, the crew knew the war was not over. But tonight, in the silence of space, they had carved fear into the hearts of their enemies, and fear would be their greatest weapon. The silence after battle was heavy. The wreckage of alien ships still drifted across the stars, broken bodies and twisted metal floating endlessly. The human ship, valiant Dawn, barely held herself together, her hull torn, her engines failing, her lights flickering like dying embers. But inside the crew still breathed their voices, weak but filled with stubborn fire. Captain Rail Varron stood at the center of the broken bridge. The screens cracked, the consoles sparking the air thick with smoke, yet his eyes were steady, his chest unshaken. He looked at his crew one by one, each battered, each scarred but alive. They had faced death and forced their enemies to retreat, but victory was a blade with two edges, and Rail knew the fight was not over. Marek leaned heavy against the weapons console, his body trembling, blood drying on his lips, his voice hoarse. "Captain, the torpedo tubes are gone. Our railguns useless. We have nothing left, Rails." I stayed calm. "Then we will fight with more than weapons." Marek's laugh was dry, bitter. "Sir, if they come again, we have no defense." Rail placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we do not let them choose when to strike. We make the choice ourselves." In engineering, Tamsin worked with trembling hands, her eyes red from smoke, her team exhausted but still moving their tools, scraping against broken wires, sparks falling like fireflies. Her voice cracked as she reported, "Sir, the engines are unstable. We can hold position, but if we push her again, the core may tear itself apart." Rail's reply was soft. "Then we push only once, and only when it matters." Dr. Valen in medbay wiped her hands across her blood-stained coat, her voice tired but steady. She had lost more than she saved, but still she moved, still she fought. She whispered to each wounded soldier, "Breathe, stay with me." She whispered hope like a prayer, and even when her heart broke, her hands never stopped. The crew of Valiant Dawn gathered. Strength not from weapons, not from engines, but from each other. Every glance, every whispered word became steel in their bones. The enemy had fled, but in the shadows of space they waited, regrouping, planning the next strike. Rail knew this silence was not peace. It was only the eye of the Stormcom. Signals crackled through the smoke. Lyra's voice. "Sharp, Captain, they are speaking to us. Not just one ship, the whole fleet. They are broadcasting." Rail's gaze narrowed open the channel. The screen, lit though cracked and broken, it revealed the alien commander Korath, his face twisted, his pride bleeding, his voice heavy with anger. "Human Captain, you should not still live. Your ship is broken, your weapons gone, yet you pretend victory." Rail stood. Oh, calm his reply, steady. "We do not pretend, alien. We survived your ambush, we broke your hunters, we made you fear us. That is victory." Korath's eyes burned, claws twitching. "Your death is only delayed. We will return with fire, and when we do nothing, will remain of you." Rail's voice was low. "Then come back and you will learn again what it means to face us." Korath cut the channel, his image fading, the silence returning, but the threat heavy in every breath. Rail turned to his crew, his voice steady. "They will come again, but now they fear us. They fear what we may be, and fear is our strongest weapon." Hours stretched into silence. The wounded slept. The ship groaned, drifting in the void, her systems slowly failing. Tamsin whispered to her engineers, "Patch what you can. We only need her to hold together long enough." Lyra stayed at her post, eyes heavy, scanning the void, waiting for signals, waiting for danger. Marek watched the weapon systems, though dead, his hands resting as if ready to strike. Rail walked the halls, his presence a fire, keeping the crew alive. Then the silence broke, alarms, screaming. Lights flashing, Lyra's voice sharp, enemy signatures returning. "The fleet is back, larger, stronger." Rail's chest rose, but his face calm. He spoke steady to all decks, "Prepare for battle. We hold until the last." The alien fleet surged back into view. Ships dark and sharp, their weapons glowing, their hunger burning. Korath at the head, his fury clear, his pride demanding blood. His officers uneasy, but obeying the prey had wounded them once, but he would not allow it again. Aboard Valiant Dawn hearts pounded, but voices held steady. Marek whispered, "No weapons." Tamsin whispered, "No engines." Valen whispered, "No more time." Yet Rail's voice cut through all of them. "Then we use what we have. The crew, the ship, the will." The alien fleet spread around them, surrounding circling claws ready to strike the void, filled with the hum of their weapons, power-building fire waiting to be unleashed. Rael raised his voice across the ship. "All hands, this is our moment. If we fall as a storm, not as Praekorath." Broad fire beams cut through the void, slicing toward the human ship. The valiant Dawn shook her metal, screaming sparks, flying flames, burning hull cracking. But she lived. She endured the bridge filled with smoke, but Rael stood tall, his voice calm. "Return nothing?" Marek slammed his hands against the console. Useless, powerless, but still fighting, Tamsin shouted, "The engines can burn once more, but it will kill her." Rael's voice was firm. "Then let her burn." The engines roared alive, their fire bright. The ship trembling, her core screaming. She pushed forward straight into the heart of the alien fleet, her broken hull blazing like a star, her wounded crew holding her together. Rael's eyes sharp target their flagship. He said Marek's reply, "Empty." "Weapons," Sir Rael's voice harder. "Then we use the ship itself." The alien fleet scattered, startled, confused. Korath shouted, "Whole formation, stop them!" But fear had spread. His soldiers hesitated, their eyes wide, their voices shaking. The prey was charging. The prey was a storm. The valiant Dawn cut through their ranks, engines blazing, metal cracking her frame, tearing apart every second, her crew clinging to walls, holding wires together, sealing ruptures with their bare hands, blood and fire mixing in. Every hole Rael's voice steady helm, bring us to the flagship. The alien flagship loomed massive, its weapons glowing, ready to fire. Korath's eyes wide, his pride breaking his fear, flooding his voice shaking. Stop them now. But it was too late. The valiant Dawn, a broken star blazing unstoppable, rushed forward, her engines. A scream, her crew. A single unbroken will impact thundered through. Silent in the void, light bursting, fire spreading. The alien flagship shuddered, her hull torn, her decks breaking, alarms screaming across her corridors. Korath thrown to the ground, his officers screaming. The impossible had happened. The prey had struck the hunter aboard valiant Dawn. The bridge exploded in sparks, flames consuming panels. The crew thrown to the ground. Rael pulled himself up, his voice calm through the chaos. "Hold her steady, hold her true." Tamsin screamed, "The core is breaking." "We cannot hold." Rael's eyes steady. "Then let it break, but aim it well." The core blazed, its energy rising, ready to tear itself apart. The ship trembling, the crew steady, their voices quiet but filled with fire. Lyra whispered, "We are still here." Marek whispered, "Until the end." Valine whispered, "Humanity does not bow." Rael whispered, "Then let the galaxy remember." As the core erupted, light brighter than stars, fire bursting through the void, the explosion ripping across the alien fleet ships, shattered, torn apart, flung into darkness. Korath's flagship split open, flames consuming metal bodies hurled into the abyss. Silence followed, endless, deep. The wreckage drifting, the stars untouched. The alien fleet broken, scattered, fleeing. Their courage burned away. The prey had become death itself. From the ruins of valiant Dawn, fragments floated, still pieces of hull. Twisted wires drifting, but in that silence, in that fire, humanity's message was carved into the void. We do not surrender, we do not break, we are the storm. The galaxy would never forget. The wreckage of the battle still floated across the silent. Void-broken ships, torn hulls and drifting bodies glimmered under distant starlight. The great explosion that had consumed the alien fleet and shattered the human vessel still left a scar upon the black nothing. The storm had passed, but its echo still lingered. From the ruins of the human ship, fragments drifted, glowing faintly from heat and fire. The proud name, Valiant Dawn, was gone, torn into scattered metal. Yet from deep inside the ruin, a faint pulse flickered, not from weapons, not from engines, but from life. The crew who had faced death with open eyes were not all gone. Captain Rael Varin opened his eyes to darkness, his body heavy, his breath weak, the weight of rubble pressing down on him, his ears filled with the sound of silence, broken only by the faint hiss of leaking air. He pushed with shaking arms, forcing broken metal aside, his chest, burning, his vision blurred, but his heart still beating. He was alive. His voice broke through the stillness, low but firm crew report. No. Answer came only the echo of his own words, then faint a cough from nearby. He dragged himself forward, his boots scraping against twisted steel until he found Marek half buried, his face pale, but his eyes open. Marek coughed blood and whispered still. Hirsa Ryle gripped his hand steady, then whispered back, "Then humanity still breathes." Elsewhere, Tamsin crawled from the broken guts of engineering. Her hair scorched her face, streaked with oil. Her hands shaking, but clutching a glowing core fragment. She whispered to herself. It held long enough it did not fail. She staggered forward, every step agony, but her eyes bright because she still walked in the shattered medbay doctor. Vaylin forced herself upright, broken ribs, screaming, blood dripping from her head, but her hands still moved. Still pressed against the chest of a wounded soldier, still whispered, "Breathe, breathe." Even as her own breath faltered, she would not stop, because hope was not allowed to die. Lyra crawled through twisted wires and shattered glass, her console gone, her station destroyed, but she still clutched the comm headset wires, torn but not silent. She listened hard, straining through the static until faint voices crackled through survivors, scattered calls of distress. Broken whispers, but human voices. Human survivors, not just from Valiant Dawn, but from the fleet, from other ships who had joined the ambush. The explosion had spared some of them. The truth began to shine through the dust. The galaxy thought the humans. Destroyed, but from the fire humanity still endured, broken, but breathing, weak but alive, their survival itself, a weapon, for it meant the fight was not over. Alien ships too drifted in the void, survivors scattered across shattered hulls, many dead, many silent but some alive. They whispered in fear, their voices trembling. For the first time, they had seen prey become predator. They had seen one human ship tear apart a fleet, and even in ruin, it still breathed fear, spread like poison among them. Commanders argued, soldiers whispered, hunters looked to shadows, certain more storms would come. Korath too survived, thrown across his broken flagship, his pride shattered, his body bleeding. He stared at the ruin of his fleet, and his voice cracked. When he whispered impossible, yet deep inside, he knew the truth. The humans were no prey. They were the storm, and storms returned always. Inside the ruins of Valiant Dawn, Rael pulled his crew together, their bodies broken but their spirits unshaken. They huddled in the dim light, the ship no longer a vessel but a tomb floating in silence. Yet Rael's voice gave life to that tomb. "We are not finished, we live, and as long as we live, humanity's fire still burns." Marek's laugh was rough, but real. "Broken weapons, broken bones, and yet we are still here." Tamsin lifted her fragment of the core and whispered, "It gave us everything, and we must give everything back." Lyra wiped blood from her face and whispered signals. "I hear them faint, but clear." Other survivors, other voices. Rael's eyes burned. "Then send them a message. Tell them humanity does not die. Tell them we are still." The Storm Lyra's fingers shook, but she worked. Broken wires, twisted circuits, patched with blood and cloth. The comm sputtered, sparked, and then carried their voices into the void. Survivors heard them. Whispers turned to cries, turned to hope across the scattered field. Human voices rose together. "We are alive. We are still here." That cry echoed beyond the battle zone, picked up by distant relays bouncing across stars, spreading through channels that had carried silence now filled with defiance. Colonies heard it, stations heard it, ships in far systems heard it. Humanity heard the whisper of the storm, and their hearts ignited. Across the alien fleets, the message spread too. They intercepted the signals meant for humans, and their fear deepened. They had seen one ship destroy many, and now they heard the survivors declare themselves. Unbroken, their whispers filled with unease. If one broken ship could burn a fleet, what would 1,000 ships do? What would a united humanity become? in the silent dark rail, looked at his crew. His voice soft but firm. "We are few. We are broken. But we have done what they thought impossible. We made them bleed. We made them fear. Now we must live long enough to return home and tell the story. Their bodies were weak, their air running low, their food nearly gone, but hope was heavier than hunger, stronger than thirst. Even as the void pressed in on them, their fire kept them alive. Hours stretched into days. Signals grew clearer, more survivors gathering, more voices joining the storm rescue ships from hidden colonies, moving out, drawn by the cry of defiance, drawn to the survivors. And then through the haze of wreckage lights appeared faint but growing search beams cutting across the silence. Human ships moving through the ruins, their voices breaking through the static. "We hear you, we are coming," the survivors cried out, tears falling, laughter breaking the silence. Even Marek, broken and pale, laughed weakly and whispered, "We are not ghosts." Tamsin clutched her core fragment tighter and whispered, "The dawn returns." Rescue teams pulled them from the wreckage, carried them from their tomb into waiting arms. Ril, the last to leave, looked once more at the broken metal that had been their home and whispered, "You were the blade that became the storm." Then he turned and stepped into the light. The survivors were taken back to colonies, their story spreading like wildfire across the stars. Children whispered it in bunkers. Soldiers spoke it before battle leaders used it to rally worlds. The name Valiant Dawn burned across the galaxy. A story of prey who became the storm of hunters, who learned fear of humanity unbroken. For the aliens, the name too became a shadow whispered in their fleets, a wound they could not heal, a fire they could not stamp out. Commanders feared its soldiers, remembered it, and Korath himself, scarred and broken, carried it like a curse. He swore revenge. Yet deep inside his fear remained. Humanity had bled. But from that blood rose steel from ruin, rose fire from silence, rose the storm, and the galaxy at last began to understand the truth. Humanity would never bow, never break, never surrender. And so the story of the ambush did not end with death. It ended with survival, with fire, with the promise that the storm would return. And when it did, no hunter, no empire, no fleet would stand against it, for humanity had shown its heart, and its heart was stronger than fear. The stars were silent once more, but in that silence, the storm waited, watching, growing, and when it came again, the galaxy would tremble.